Hi, I'm Peter Bolin again. Welcome you to episode 3 of our deep inquiry into the wonderful wisdom found in this book, I Am That, a collection of sayings and teachings of one of the 20th century's great Indian gurus or teachers of Advaita Vedanta or non-dual wisdom. And at the heart of any inquiry into non-duality is this question: what is the mind? And what is the mind, my own individual mind, your own individual mind, this thing that is processing my words and thinking its own thoughts and has its own collected history of memory of what one knows and what one has experienced, the mind. And what is the relationship between the mind and the body and ultimate reality? It seems to be its own domain. It isn't just meat and bones, and yet it is clearly not omniscient and aware of everything either. It's limited. So the mind seems to occupy this sort of middle ground between matter and whatever we've imagined divinity to be. So what is it? Here's what Nisargadatta offers to a question something like that from one of the students that came to see him. He said, just like wood produces fire, which is not wood, so does the body produce the mind, which is not the body. You got a good teacher when they can just so quickly out of everyday experience pull a metaphor, almost a parable, almost a one-sentence parable that begins to illustrate and bring to life the deeply felt but difficult to articulate distinction between the mind and the body. Again, just like wood produces fire, which is not wood, so does the body produce the mind, which is not the body. A curious insight into the composition of a human being. Now, with that, let's jump into a bit of a longer thought here, and I'll read it all the way through and then we'll comment on it a little bit. He said, "Do not pretend that you love others as yourself. Unless you have realized them as one with yourself, you cannot love them. Don't pretend to be what you are not. Don't refuse to be what you are. Your love of others is the result of self-knowledge, not its cause. Without self-realization, no virtue is genuine," he says. "When you know beyond all doubting that the same life flows through all that is, and you are that life, you will love all naturally and spontaneously." Here we are trying to plumb the depths of the big word love. And the question we hear in so many spiritual teachings about loving one another. And it seems to me that Nisargadatta is putting that much lauded but rarely practiced universal unconditional loving kindness on the metaphysical foundation of non-duality. That until you realize there are no others, that all are part of one reality, then you haven't really experienced love in its deepest form. That's why he starts with that kind of, a little bit of a slapback. Do not pretend that you love others as yourself. Unless you have realized them as one with yourself, you cannot love them. So for Nisargadatta, true love must be foundationally rooted in a non-dual awareness of the other. When Jesus says in the Gospels, however you treat others is how you are treating me. Jesus identifies his divine nature with all forms. And unless you have profound consciousness of unity and loving kindness for all forms, that's evidence of your disconnection from your own sacred nature. He says, what was never lost can never be found. Your very search for safety and joy keeps you away from them. Stop searching, cease looking. The disease is simple and the remedy equally simple. It is your mind only that makes you insecure and unhappy. Anticipation makes you insecure, memory unhappy. Stop misusing your mind and all will be well with you. You need not set it right. It will set itself right as soon as you give up all concern with the past and future and live entirely in the now. Sounds like a page ripped out of Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Beautiful. Such a simple, grounded, down-to-earth way of teaching. You can see why he got the name Nisargadatta Maharaj. Nisarga meaning, again, nature. And I promised you in video 1, as we go through this, you'll see again and again evidence for why his teachings are associated with a kind of naturalness, a kind of obviousness, a kind of simplicity, a rooted, grounded, very everyday kind of spiritual teaching. What was never lost can never be found. Your very search for safety and joy keeps you away from them. And that very Buddhist idea that our suffering is generally generated by our own minds, stuck as our minds are with, and obsessed really with the past and the future. Looking back at the past, there are things I deeply regret and feel shame about, and there are things I long for that were just perfect. And looking ahead at the future, which is even less real than the past because it hasn't even happened yet, I project all kinds of, perfect situations in the future that I'm trying to create, and the absence of all bad things. And the joke is, this thing I call the past and this thing I call the present don't exist, except as a thought I'm having in this now moment. What is the past but a bunch of memories that are occurring now? There is no such thing as the past. And what is the future but a bunch of projections about what might be that haven't happened yet and probably won't? And yet my mind's tendency is to attach to past and future. And what a shame to get to the end of my life and realize that I never spent any time here and now, which is the only place any of us ever are. This is the eternal present moment where we have the possibility of touching the divine, realizing our oneness with it. He says, realize that your present existence is like a shower of sparks, each spark lasting a second, and then the shower itself a minute or two. Maybe he'd seen some fireworks or something, and that's where the image comes from. That Buddhist idea of anatman, no permanent self. That idea that we are a phenomenon. We are an event, not a thing. We are an ephemeral aggregate of separate and distinct energy systems and moments and phenomena that are fleeting. And we ascribe to this cluster of energy continuity, identity, that it doesn't really have. Realize that your present existence is like a shower of sparks, each spark lasting a second, and the shower itself a minute or two. And so that's, to put it in Buddhist terms, sort of the deepest realization that not only is there nothing to cling to, there is no one to do the clinging. And in that wisdom, the whole architecture of suffering begins to collapse. He says the mind exists in two states, as water and as honey. This is the famous water and honey passage. The mind exists as two states, as water and as honey. The water vibrates at the least disturbance, while the honey, however disturbed, returns quickly to immobility. Another beautiful kitchen table analogy or metaphor. Water is very disturbable, the slightest disturbance, and off it goes into agitation. Whereas honey, I don't have a jar of honey handy here. Honey, is thick, and if it gets disturbed, it quickly goes back to stillness. What if that is a useful analogy of the different layers of our mind? The surface of my mind is always churning with agitation and craving and fear. But what if deep inside of me there is a stillness that is more like honey? It's just another way of talking about the layers of consciousness, the layers of the mind, if you will, from the agitated surface to the stillness of the depth. And you have the freedom to identify with any of those levels. He says, watch your thoughts as you watch the street traffic. This is a nice example of what a lot of meditation teachers do. Pema Chodron talks about, be the sky. When you're meditating, imagine that you are the witness of your thoughts. And as your thoughts go by, imagine that they are clouds traveling a clear and empty sky. And you are not your thoughts. Instead, you are the sky in which your thoughts arise, transpire, and fade. Analogies like that can be very, very helpful. And this one is the traffic analogy. So imagine when you're meditating and witnessing your thoughts, imagine that you're on the balcony of your second-story hotel room in a foreign city. And you're watching the traffic go by on the street below, and the light turns red and they all stop, and the light turns green and they all go. They're going in different directions. You don't attach to any of them. You don't identify with any of those cars. You simply, with great disinterestedness, watch them come and go, come and go. And pretty soon, when you start to practice it in your meditation, you can do this when you're not meditating, when you're in line at Costco, when you're stuck in traffic. You can step back into the inner witness and watch it all unfold without having an opinion about it. The great Krishnamurti said, and Ramana Maharshi used this phrase too, choiceless awareness. Try to cultivate choiceless awareness, to simply be aware of what is happening without immediately labeling all of it with egoic judgments. This is in my benefit. This is not in my benefit. This is in my, I like this. I don't like this. This is going to help me. This is going to hurt me. This is good. This is bad. Those are all choices, labels, self-centered egoic judgments. What if I could come into this next moment and not label anything? Choiceless awareness. Imagine how freeing that would be. Regarding thoughts, Nisargadatta said this, your very fighting them gives them life. Your very resistance to them gives them life. Just disregard, look through. It is disinterestedness that liberates. Don't hold on, that is all. The world is made of rings. The hooks are all yours. Make straight your hooks, and nothing can hold you. Give up your addictions. There is nothing else to give up. Stop your routine of acquisitiveness, your habit of looking for results. And the freedom of the universe is yours. Be effortless. What a wonderful image. You know what Velcro is, right? One side's all hoops and the other side's all hooks. That's why Velcro, it works. And it's a beautiful thing. What a nice analogy to say that the world, the experiential, perceptual, conceptual world is all hoops. We're the hooks. We bring the attachment, the craving, the expectations, the demands, the shoulds. This should have happened. It shouldn't be so hot. It shouldn't be so cold. We bring the hooks. The world is made of hoops. Nisargadatta's advice is, make straight the hooks. In other words, as Gandhi put it, renounce, let go. Buddha's term, non-attachment. He goes on and says, if you just try and keep quiet, all will come. The work, the strength for work, the right motive. Must you know everything beforehand? Don't be anxious about your future. Be quiet now, and all will fall into place. I can imagine Nisargadatta Maharaj saying that to yet another frazzled pilgrim sitting in front of him, who's just, I can't stop my mind from worrying. I can't stop from feeling anxious and afraid all the time. I'm trying to do these projects. I'm trying to, start a business. I'm trying to raise my kids. I'm trying to make my marriage better. I'm trying to start a nonprofit. I'm trying to fix a problem in the neighborhood. I'm trying to work to create more justice in the world, or to help repair all the environmental damage that we've done. And we have all these incredible projects that we're all engaged in, noble, laudable, necessary, good work. And his advice is, if you just try and keep quiet, all will come. So out of the silence, out of our meditation, everything is going to work out. The right actions will present themselves. The strength to take those right actions will arise of their own accord. We don't manufacture that strength. The right motive for undertaking the action will also arise on its own out of the depths of our own sacred natures. Trust that. Instead of insisting that before you take one step, you know what all the outcomes are going to be, you foresee every problem, and you already have the solutions for all those problems somewhere in your pocket. That's madness. That's not how reality unfolds. Your agency and action are but one factor in the unfolding of this next moment. Most of it is out of your control. Seek instead to harmonize what you are doing with what is already unfolding. Read the Tao Te Ching. It's all about that. The ancient Chinese tradition of Taoism calls that Wu Wei. Creative letting be, deep cooperation. In my book, The Seven Stone Path, An Everyday Journey to Wisdom, I have a whole chapter on it called Allowance. It's a powerful stance to let go. One more in this video I'll share with you. He says, there are always moments when one feels empty and estranged. Such moments are most desirable, for it means the soul has cast its moorings and is sailing for distant places. This is detachment, when the old is over and the new has not yet come. I love this one. I need to hear this one, being a bit of a melancholic and anxious person myself. What if we began to recast our darker days, our sadness, our depression, our anxiety, our feelings of listlessness, that sense of being lost, of not knowing what to do and not having the energy to do it even if you did? He says there are always moments when one feels empty and estranged. Such moments are most desirable. What if we began to view those moments as necessary seasons of rest? Just as the earth goes into the winter and everything dies and retreats back into its roots and everything's kind of gray and flat and apparently still. What if our psyche, our consciousness has those same seasons? And what if this feeling I have of being unmoored, disconnected, is an essential stage in my unfolding? Because in order to move to what is next, do I not have to let go of what I'm still clinging to? That old swimming pool analogy. You can't swim to the other side until you let go of this side. And when you're out in the indeterminacy of the wide sea and you can't see the horizon, how can you not feel lost and hopeless and unmoored? But what if in our own narrative about that feeling, we began to say to ourselves, this is a good thing, because it means I have let go of what no longer serves my highest good. And I trust that the current is carrying me closer to what is next. Join me in the next episode of our deep inquiry into Nisargadatta's I Am That. I'll see you on the other side.